Let's get this show on the road. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first Redlands AAUW branch webinar. Please be patient with us as we proceed today because this is all new for all of us. I'm only sorry that I can't be there with you to greet you in person as we normally do during the social time before the meeting begins. As an attendee, you will not be able to be seen or heard, but you will be able to see and hear the panelists, including our guest speaker. If you cannot for some reason, please let us know in the chat section at the bottom of your screen. Go to the chat section and you can type in a message there that I will be able to see. And that way we'll know if you're having difficulties in hearing or seeing us. As our guest speaker is speaking today, if you listening to her, if you have questions you want to ask her, please go to the bottom of your screen to the Q&A feature down there at the bottom, and a screen will pop up on your computer and you will be able to type in your question there and we will be able to see it so that Mary can answer those questions for us. There's also a chat feature down at the bottom where you can make comments to everyone who is participating in the meeting or to a specific individual who is in attendance at the meeting. You can designate there's a little arrow next to it that it says attendees and it lists all the attendees, and you can click on one attendee in particular and send a message to that particular attendee. This is going to be a learning experience for all of us, but we hope to make it work for us.
Good morning. It's nice to see all of you again. Although I can't see everybody at once, I'm going to have to be scrolling through to see you. These are heroic times, and I was thinking a little bit about nurses as heroes and wondered about that idea. So I'm thinking a little bit about that today, and I wanted to share my thoughts with you. Neil Armstrong, his quote about heroes is, when we hear the word hero, we typically think of those rushing into burning buildings, fighting on the battlefield, or defending us from criminal activity. Well, that's not really my idea of a nurse, so let's think a little bit more. Let's go back in the years and let's think about how nurses got started. In the 1800s, excuse me, in addition to caring for patients, 50 patients each nurse took care of. She had to do all of the following: sweep the floors, mop them, dust the bedside tables. She had to take care of the lights. She had to cut the wicks, clean the chimneys. She was responsible for direct patient care at the same time. So she had many duties in those days. And who was the first nurse that we all think about? Florence Nightingale. She took effect during the Crimean War, and her focus was on cleanliness and getting good nutrition in, making sure that the drains were cleaned out every day. And from all the things that she developed during that war, she opened her own nursing school following that. And what happened beyond that? I'm sorry, I thought I turned that off. After that, nursing schools began to open, and the nursing schools were quite rigid in their behavior with young women. There were many interesting rules then. Nursing students could not go out and date, for instance. If they were good during the week and kept to their duties, which, by the way, their working hours were from 8 in the morning until 6 at night, they were given time off on Sundays. They were given 2 hours off for their entire week. So rather restrictive. If they didn't get their hair cut in a beauty salon, if they didn't go out to the dance halls, then they were thought of good character and they were continued in their employment. They did all this for $30 a month, and they were expected to save 15 of those dollars for their retirement, so they didn't have to be a burden on society. So those were the good old days, and that was a really tough life, but they did it willingly and enjoyed their time taking care of patients and their collegiality. So what happened to evolve to where we're at now, especially today's world where we have the pandemic? I had some interesting pictures, but unfortunately we weren't able to work out how to show them today. I think you've all seen pictures of how people are wearing all the garb today in the health profession, covering their faces with plastic, wearing underneath that the masks that they have to wear, covered head to toes, if they're doing direct patient care. And this is where my idea of a hero comes in. The nurses today are approaching this pandemic face to face, taking care of patient after patient who are suffering greatly. Their families are suffering because they can't spend time with them. And I think the nurses are heroes, and nurses have been heroes for years. We also hear in the news about people who are suffering mental health problems and who are not being treated the best way that they should be. And nurses have always come to the aid of mental health patients as well, whether they're in the hospital, whether they see them out in the public. Nurses have always cared for them along with part of the medical team. So nurses are to be rewarded, I believe, for the life that they put into caring for their patients. And what do we think about that? I think that sometimes nurses don't get their due. They need to be thought of kindly, and they need to be thought of, and they need to be considered for their days that they spend in service as RNs, LVNs, however they participate in the medical field. Do you know that there's many nurses amongst us sitting as part of us today? We have probably a dozen nurses. I think we should start asking them what their hero moments are. Every one of them has a hero story, I can assure you. And I think that we should pay attention to it and give them credit for their time and service. My last photo today was going to be of three nurses who have their garb on, and they found it very difficult to deal patient to patient, and the patients recognizing them as being friendly. And so what they did is they put a picture of themselves without their uniform on the outside of their uniform that they're wearing in doing direct patient care. And that shows the novelty and the idea of nurses who need to be person to person with these patients who are suffering so severely. So my thought is, ask a nurse, what was your hero moment, and share it with them and give them credit. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. That was a very insightful thought for the month. Okay, now we need to move on with our guest speaker. We're going to allow her to be at the beginning of the program so that if she wants to leave us, she can when she's finished. So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Brown, who will now introduce our guest speaker. Catherine?
Good morning. I'm also very happy to see you all. Our guest speaker this morning is Dr. Mary Zupank. Mary is a member of AAUW, of course, but she is also a member of our National Board of Directors. Her day job is as a clinical neurophysiologist. She is a physician who treats primarily children and teens and specializes in problems that they have of a neurological type, including epilepsy. Her third multitasking thing that she does is she's the mother of 4 grown daughters. And for fun, she's a long distance runner. Dr. Mary, thank you for coming back to Redlands this year.
You're welcome. It's really a pleasure to be here, virtually at least. That's what I'm doing all my clinic visits now as telehealth visits. That's the silver lining in the COVID pandemic. So um, I'm here to speak, I believe, about the coronavirus and how it's made a significant impact on our society. The world certainly has changed, and it continues to change. I really enjoyed the comments about nursing because before I became a physician, I was a nurse, and nurses don't get their fair share. They, as a nurse, you work in the trenches and you are face to face with your patients on a daily basis, and our nurses right now are indeed heroes. Um, but facing the coronavirus has provided an extra layer of challenge for all of us in healthcare and in society. We are now a global community, and you can all anticipate more pandemics in the future because the whole world is interconnected, and there is travel and exchange of ideas and people, and that's always going to occur. And as a result, infectious diseases can spread much more readily. So you can anticipate that our world is forever changed in much the way that yesterday, September 11th, changed our world. To date, there are now over 6.5 million Americans who've had COVID and close to 200,000 deaths. I would anticipate, as does the CDC, that there will be many more deaths by the end of the year. So I'm just going to give you a short overview, and then I'm going to open it up to questions because I anticipate that questions may lend to a whole nother layer of discussion. So the coronavirus is a SARS-CoV-2 virus. It probably originated from bats. Hence, it is not surprising to any of us in neuroscience or in science that it originated in Wuhan, China, which does have a repository for bat research. It can be, as we all know and understand now, it can be aerosolized and spread by respiratory droplets in the air. And that is why we have certain CDC guidelines. The symptoms, I won't belabor that point because I'm sure most of you are aware of the symptoms. They can occur 2 to 14 days after exposure. So there's a window there where you can be asymptomatic. And in fact, some patients, as we know, some people are completely asymptomatic carriers, but super spreaders. But the first symptoms usually are fever, muscle aches and pains, a dry cough, not a wet cough. So not a runny nose and a wet productive cough, but a dry cough and sore throat. And they can range from being mild symptoms to very severe respiratory symptoms requiring ventilation. Other symptoms are diarrhea, fatigue, nausea, and vomiting. Those are less common, but certainly notable. And I'm sure you've all heard that with some people, they lose their taste and smell. That may or may not come back. I think we're learning as we go along, but there's some patients that I've taken care of and others who do not have a return of their taste and smell. And smell is integral to taste. If you don't smell, your taste really diminishes considerably. So fatigue, headache, muscle aches are probably the most common symptoms of those who are not hospitalized. The respiratory symptoms are really the ones that need medical care. So anyone who has been exposed to coronavirus who experiences respiratory symptoms know that usually about on day 8 is when the respiratory symptoms dramatically increase, and they may require prompt intubation and ventilation. What we're learning about this virus is it can be multi-system, and I'm sure you've all heard of some children who have had what we call a autoimmune response. It's where your immune system goes on overdrive and becomes overactive. And so they develop skin lesions and myocarditis, inflammation of the heart, and other systems. And that can be, that needs to be recognized. It's similar to, I don't know if any of you have heard of the word Kawasaki disease, but it's as if you're exposed to a virus, and in those individuals who are genetically predisposed, they have an overdrive of their immune system that results in the body attacking itself. And steroids can be very, very helpful if you recognize that that's what's going on. We are also learning in the neurology world that there are neurologic symptoms, not just the loss of taste and smell, but also encephalitis and other neurological complications. And what's now emerging is that for some patients, there may be long-term memory and cognitive changes following COVID-19. The susceptibility, those who are most susceptible are those of us who are over the age of 65 years. I was kind of shocked when I realized that I was in a high-risk category. I've always thought of myself, I am a long-distance runner. I just ran a virtual marathon, and I've always thought of myself as a very young person. I don't put myself in the senior class. But because of my age, I was actually relegated by Children's Hospital of Orange County to not be in the hospital after COVID-19 began, but to do primarily telehealth visits via this same Zoom platform. But obesity, in fact, morbid obesity is probably one of the biggest risk factors. Asthma, respiratory conditions like chronic emphysema, heart disease, diabetes, individuals who are immunosuppressed, like those who've had cancer and have had chemotherapy. And then there are social determinants of healthcare. So you may have read that African Americans, Hispanic populations seem to be at higher risk, but they have comorbidities that are often obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. And that gets us to the social determinants of health. Many individuals in our society live in poverty, have limited access to healthcare, or are skeptical of our healthcare system. And that, I think, dovetails into making certain populations more susceptible to severe forms of the disease. With respect to recovery from coronavirus, it can vary. If you have a mild disease, some people recover in 2 to 3 weeks. For other people, it's a much more protracted illness. And with those who have neurologic symptoms, they may never fully recover. Now, there are many who state that, well, if you're young or in college, you don't have to really worry about the severity of the disease. Here are the new statistics, because our colleges have opened up. 1 in 5 college students, that means 20%, end up in the hospital because of severe respiratory disease. And 1 in 10% of our college students end up on ventilators. That sounds like a pretty severe disease to me, and potentially lethal to college students. Children tend to be more mildly affected unless they have some of the predisposing conditions that I just talked about, but they are often asymptomatic and they can spread the disease. So we have to take that into account, because they may not have severe symptoms, but they can spread it to their parents, grandparents, immunosuppressed individuals. With respect to treatment, there are currently no FDA-approved drugs. As I hope we all know, hydroxychloroquine is not an acceptable form of treatment for COVID-19 and can contain some serious side effects, including cardiac arrhythmias. What Europe has shown us is that dexamethasone, which is a steroid, particularly if your respiratory symptoms increase dramatically, that probably is helpful in calming down the exuberant immunologic response to the respiratory portion of COVID-19. Remdesivir has also been shown to be helpful, but again, neither one of these are FDA approved. but empirically speaking to you as a healthcare provider, they do appear to be helpful. Plasma from, using plasma from individuals who've been infected with COVID-19, that's what we call IVIG, IV immunoglobulins. I know that has been fast-tracked for FDA approval, but there are many of us, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is my go-to person for the facts, really believe that that's been rushed. And until we have good clinical trials, we won't know if it's effective or not. And it does carry some risks. So we don't have any FDA approved drugs. Certainly antibiotics for this virus don't work. Antibiotics are for bacteria, not viruses. That being said, when you end up with a viral respiratory illness, sometimes superimposed over that virus, you can get a bacterial infection. Vaccines are in development, and it is being fast-tracked. I forget the word that's used. I blocked it out, but you may know that there was a letter put together by the manufacturers of these drugs, the companies that are really working very, very diligently to produce a vaccine. They sent a letter this week, all of them, a combined letter, collaborative letter to the federal government saying they would not release any vaccine without the following two preconditions. It had to be proven to be effective and safe in clinical trials. And that's almost unheard of for companies to send a letter like that. But I was reassured by that. AstraZeneca, which is producing a vaccine that is in a clinical trial, you may or may not have heard, it stopped testing their vaccine this week because one of their volunteers developed a severe adverse side effect. Now, those of us who participate in clinical trials, we know that can happen. That happens in any clinical trial. It remains to be seen if it's due to the vaccine or something else. But in the interim, the trial is stopped until we determine if it's at all related to the vaccine, then that vaccine is no longer going to be tested. I would not expect a vaccine, and these, I'm going to use Dr. Fauci's words again. And the best, if everything goes swimmingly well, the soonest I think we're going to see a vaccine is early 2021. And then it has to be mass produced. The public has to be accepting of the vaccine. I don't anticipate enough people being vaccinated until the summer or fall of 2021. Prevention, and this is where we get into a sticky wicket, but it's very clear. It's an aerosolized coronavirus. Masks are important. And you may have seen some cartoons about masks. Masks that don't cover the nose are not effective. Cover the nose. I see so many people where the masks are down here, 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 here. It's got to cover the nose. And cloth masking is effective in preventing the spread of respiratory viruses, but the nose has to be covered. And there are very few, if any, conditions that prevent you from wearing a mask. I've heard people say, well, I can't wear a mask because my oxygen level is going to go down. Well, hello, we're in the OR and in patients' rooms for hours. And in fact, one nurse, and it's on YouTube, put on a mask and had a pulse oximeter that measures the oxygen level and demonstrated very clearly that the oxygen level does not go down when you wear a mask. Social, I don't like the word social distancing, physical distancing. It's really difficult, I think, for all of us right now to not be able to hug our loved ones if they live long distances away. But even if they come to our home, we have to practice physical distancing. And that's difficult, but important. If you're if you're near a patient who's COVID positive and within 6 feet of a patient who's COVID or a person who's COVID positive for more than 15 minutes, your risk of developing COVID is probably greater than 90%. So physical distancing over 6 feet between people, masking, and then most importantly, washing hands. Soap and water. That's what Florence Nightingale taught us and Pasteur taught us years ago. And soap and water to me is better than hand sanitizer, but you certainly isopropyl alcohol greater than 70% in the hand sanitizers is effective. It just makes my hands dry up and look shriveled. But soap and water is equally effective. And everybody I think knows that you sing happy birthday when you wash your hands at least 20 to 30 seconds. Get under the fingernails. Don't forget to wash over the hands, under the hands, up to the wrist. Very, very effective prevention. And last but not least, leadership starts at the top. That is where the seed, yeah, I'll just say that. Leadership starts at the top. And when our own leaders do not follow the CDC guidelines, there's a trickle-down effect. If you're gonna listen to anybody, listen to Dr. Anthony Fauci. I have known Dr. Fauci since the HIV epidemic in the 80s. He was one person who really presented factual information, objective, without hyperbole, without any superlatives. He didn't understate or overstate. He just gave you the facts that you needed to know. He is a good person, very, very calm in a storm. The CDC guidelines, follow them. I would say that some of them have been diluted, but the CDC guidelines still call for physical distancing, masking, and washing hands. To me, as a healthcare provider, I'm going to editorialize a little bit here, but the lack of federal response, coordination in what I call a national and international crisis has been nothing short of appalling. When we have nurses and physicians and other healthcare providers on the front lines who don't have adequate personal protective equipment, why is that? We're a country of wealth. Why can't we do that? We need to have federally coordinated testing, regular, accessible, and affordable. It should be free to anybody who wants it. So regular testing. Number 2, contact tracing. Someone's positive. Europe does this. China does this. Southeast Asia does that. They have people who contact every single person who's been exposed to the individuals known to be COVID positive. We can do that. 3, there should be federal mandates for masking, physical distancing, and washing hands. 4, adequate personal protective equipment. Lives are at stake here. What has been most surprising to me is that where's the social consciousness? You know, when there was World War II, we had men and women go to war knowing that they were putting their lives on the line, but it was for the good of society. So when we have these mandates, where's the social consciousness? Where's the collective social responsibility? Okay, I don't like wearing a mask. I'll admit, I don't like wearing a mask, but I'm gonna do it because I wanna protect you, and I wanna protect somebody's grandmother. I wanna protect a child who's immunosuppressed. Let's get together as a society. This me, myself, and I mentality just really is quite appalling to me. And because of the economic fallout that's happened with this pandemic, we need to provide support to families and small businesses. I can tell you in my personal life and in the patients that I deal with every single day, they are desperately in need of support with healthcare, for food, water, rent, everything. And they're scared, they're terrified. Let's provide that aid. And states need aid. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. States have to balance their budgets. And yet they're being called upon to provide PPE equipment for hospitals and increased healthcare, increased demand for social services, and opening schools, but without giving any of the resources. This is where the federal government could move in and help support the states so they can provide the necessary care to our families. So in summary, we are in the midst of a real crisis, and I feel for families who are trying to keep it all together. I mean, I can't imagine raising 4 daughters, being a physician. My daughters are older now, but what if they were home and trying to homeschool them and coordinate all of that? And I have the money to provide them with adequate computers. What about families who don't have those resources? We don't, and they have to go to work, because if they don't go to work, they can't earn the money that's going to pay the rent, that's going to buy food for the table and provide them with health care. So we as a society, I think, really have to come together and collectively make this situation better. And we can do it. We absolutely can do it. So I hope my little talk has provided you with some background about coronavirus, what's a good therapy, what isn't, what we're doing with vaccines, and what we as a society need to do to make it better. Thank you. I think there were some questions, right?
Yes, there was one question that we had, and I think you sort of answered it, but we'll repeat it just to make sure. When will you feel that a vaccine is safe?
Well, I honestly believe that there's a lot of pressure to release a vaccine, but I was reassured by the letter sent by the manufacturers. I don't know if somebody is not on mute.
Yeah. Shelley, put yourself on mute, please.
Oh, how do I do that?
Right down
in the lower left-hand corner.
Wait a minute.
It says mute.
There. That's
Okay,
good.
that's got it.
But anyway, I think most pharmaceutical companies are really stand-up people. They're really in it for the right reasons. And you can make arguments about how much money they make, but right now there's a collective will to provide a vaccine that's safe and effective. And I have to trust that there are people in the federal government, including Dr. Fauci, and he gives us our word that there's not going to be a vaccine released until there have been the efficacy, the effectiveness is determined, and then these safety trials are completed. And that's going to take time. Do not expect a vaccine before 2021. And if the trials get sidelined like AstraZeneca's did, it's going to be longer. And that, to me, I'm okay with that. Nobody wants a vaccine out there that's going to produce Guillain-Barré syndrome or some other neurologic consequence. So I think in this case, we have to trust the Food and Drug Administration to do their job. And there's a lot of pressure on them to do the right thing. What will it benefit if we release a vaccine too early and people have neurologic consequences or other adverse reactions?
We've got a few more questions coming in too. We are told that masks protect primarily others, but will a 3-layer mask with a filter as the mid-layer protect the wearer as well?
Actually, filters are not recommended. Filters can act as a two-way street. So for example, at CHOC and in hospitals, we do not allow individuals to have filters in their masks. Just a single double layer filter mask and a cloth mask will protect you from respiratory spread, respiratory droplets. Hang on, that's me. That will, but filters are not effective. And I saw another question too.
Yeah.
Masking does protect, you're right, the mask does protect you from spreading it to someone else. And And other people though have to mask so that they can, if they don't mask, they can spread it to you. But if there's a nice European study that shows if both people wear masks, the chance of you getting COVID is less than 5%. If one person is masked and the other isn't, the person who is not masked can spread that virus about 50% of the time. If both people are not masked and they're in close proximity, then the spread is probably over 90%.
Some are having problems using the Q&A feature. So if you can't get into the Q&A feature, type your question in the chat section down at the bottom. Here's a couple of other questions from the chat section. Are they infectious as soon as they are exposed, or does it take a few days? Is it based on when the symptoms appear?
No, you can be completely asymptomatic and a super spreader. That's a problem. And children and younger people tend to be asymptomatic, and yet they can spread it unknowingly to others. And that's a big chunk of the population. Just recently, there were a group of preschoolers, all of whom were positive, who spread it to their teachers, and the teachers spread it to their parents and their children, etc. And the symptoms, if they are going to occur between 2 to 14 days of age. But there are plenty of individuals who are completely asymptomatic, but can spread the virus. They can be the super spreaders.
Yeah. Tony Momberger is asking, she says, I hear a lot from lay people about the need to get out and create herd immunity. Can you speak to that?
Sure, that's a failed experiment. Great Britain tried that. Sweden tried that, and it was a complete disaster. Sweden has had more deaths per capita than any other European nation. And so they don't mandate anything, but people are beginning to wear masks. But herd immunity doesn't work. And in fact, people say, well, I've got antibody testing, so that means I'm protected. We have no idea what the antibody test results mean at this point. We don't. And it's going to take a while for us to figure out, number one, if you have antibodies, are they protective, and what antibodies infer protection? And number two, how long if you are immune, how long does that last? We think it's much shorter than people think. But the failed experiments look at the data from Sweden and Great Britain. Great Britain tried the herd immunity, and they had such an escalation in the number of cases that is where Johnson intervened and said, we are masking, and we're doing quarantine, and we're going to do testing, and we want physical distancing, masking, washing hands. Sweden never did that, but herd immunity did not work, and they had a marked escalation in cases as well.
Susan Wong wants to know, do people who have symptoms of fever and diarrhea, but no respiratory symptoms, still test positive with the nasopharyngeal swab test?
Yes.
Okay. And if immunity doesn't stick, this is coming from Tony Momberger, how can there be a vaccine? I also would like you to circle back and address Heather's question about how soon after exposure you can affect others.
Okay, well, those are two separate questions.
Right.
So we're not really sure how long immunity lasts. Remember, this is a new virus. And so questions that may be answered definitively in one day, that's why when our administration says, oh, the CDC keeps changing the rules, et cetera, and that's because medicine is a science, but it's also an art. And right now, we change the CDC guidelines because we're learning as we go along. So right now, we can't definitively tell you how long immunity lasts. And so therefore, we're not going to be able to tell you right away, depending on the vaccine, how long a vaccine is going to last. And if the virus mutates, just like the influenza virus mutates, we're going to need to adapt as we go. Now, there are some vaccines that are being developed that will probably work at the core RNA of the virus that may be less susceptible to mutations that the virus may undergo. And that may confer more long-term immunity. But unfortunately, the answer to that question is really, for me, going to be equivocal. We don't know yet. And we'll have to develop the vaccine, and we'll have to probably learn it over time as to how long it will stick and how long it will last.
We have just a couple of more questions. One is, some have talked about budgeting exposures. I need to be with my grandchildren sometimes to help their parents work. So I wear a mask with them and I try to stay outdoors and leave a window cracked open if indoors. Do you have any advice on this? We have a 3-child kindergarten pod to limit the people the children see.
Well, I think being outside, that's really good. If you're going to open up schools, you're going to do it in small cohorts of people. Being outside if possible. Getting a 3-year-old to wear a mask is probably a lost cause. You can try it. Some would probably be more compliant than others. I take care of a lot of children and young adults who have autism. It's kind of a lost cause they don't like anything close to their face. So physical distancing, I think what she's doing, being outside or keeping a window cracked, having the kids wash their hands frequently, it can be a game. That in and of itself, I think will be helpful. And then circling back to the other question about how long after exposure do you become a spreader? We think it is probably 24 to 48 hours. But again, remember, we are learning, and it does take at least 24 hours to 48 hours for the initial symptoms to develop. We are not yet certain if once you've been exposed, are you immediately able to spread the virus. I suspect it's about 24 to 48 hours. And remember, everyone should remember that there are people in our community who are asymptomatic, don't think they have the disease, and are super spreaders or spreaders. So anyone you look at in the community can have COVID-19, or you should think they have COVID-19 until proven otherwise.
Is there a possibility of getting flu and COVID?
Oh yes, absolutely. They're 2 different viruses, and that's why we're very, very concerned that we're going to have an influenza epidemic combined with a COVID epidemic.
And so you recommend that everyone get the flu shot as well as when they develop COVID-19.
And let me debunk a couple of things, because everybody said, I've had people say, well, I'm never going to get the flu shot because I got the flu shot and I got sick afterwards. Well, it's a killed vaccine. Sorry. There have actually been studies that have looked at this. It's a different virus. And unless you're allergic to sometimes they're made from egg or sometimes other serum that you're allergic to, you could be allergic to the vaccine. But for the most part, anyone who can get the vaccine should get the vaccine. And that means not just your kids. That means everyone should get the flu vaccine. What's really interesting though, is we had a huge influenza A, influenza B epidemic when COVID hit the United States, which was January, February, and March is when we instituted the new CDC guidelines. When people started washing their hands and physical distancing, guess what happened? Not only did COVID-19 go down, but influenza A and influenza B dropped off the face of the earth. So if we're going to do anything, get a flu vaccine, but also continue the physical distancing, masking, and washing hands.
Erica Wilson has a question that I thought was really interesting. She said, how can we find out where in any community, town, city, the virus is most prevalent and is spreading? We get reports of how many cases there are in any city or town, but not where. So for instance, is my grocery store a hotspot?
I think you have to assume the grocery store is a hotspot. Unfortunately, we don't do enough testing or enough contact tracing for us to be able to answer that very important question. Now, South Korea did it beautifully, but we do not. So that deep a dive into the data, we don't have that data.
And it would be helpful if we did.
It would be very helpful. It's a great question. And there was an earlier question too about, or comment at least, about the CDC guidelines having been undermined.
Yeah.
And I would say there are, if you read them strictly, they're about the same, but there are certain people in the administration that will twist what the guidelines actually say and give it a different spin. And that's very distressing to all of us in public health.
One last question here, and I'm not sure if this is facetious or not. It says,
Okay.
will our bats get the virus from us?
Well, there is no known human to animal transmission that we're aware of. There is one report of a dog actually getting the coronavirus.
Oh, wow.
So I do, that's one report. I think, again, these are really great questions, and we are still learning a lot. But for the most part, we do not know of people who have transmitted this virus to animals. But remember, in China, the people eat bats. And that's how we think that is probably how the corona COVID-2, the SARS-CoV-2 virus that started.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Zupeng. This has just been an enormous help to all of us in understanding all of this that's going on. We really appreciate you coming and speaking to us at our first fall meeting, even if it is in a webinar format and not in person. So if everybody, we can't virtually let her hear our clapping, but clap at home to let her know that we really appreciate her coming and visiting. So
Well,
if go ahead.
I was just going to say it was really a pleasure to be here, and know that the information that I provided today may change. You know, because we are really learning on the fly, and I think we're doing it. The people that I know in infectious disease and in the CDC, and in particular Dr. Fauci, are really working hard to keep us safe. But we need a change in the federal response. That's all I'll say. But it was a pleasure to talk to all of you. It's always so much fun. I wish I could be there in person like it was last year, but in the future, I anticipate we will see each other again. So thank you very much.
A lot of people are saying thank you on chat, and it's been very informative. So we really appreciate it. And you don't have to stick around for the rest of our meeting if you don't want to.
No, I gotta go take care of my patients.
Right. Thank you. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Well, the pleasure's mine. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, now, usually at each of our fall sessions that we have, the September meeting, we have a chance for people to go around to the table, sign up for our various projects and interest groups and so forth. We don't have a chance to do that here, but we wanted to give everybody an opportunity to be able to talk, all of the chairs that are in charge of these different projects, to be able to talk a little bit about those projects to everybody. So we're just going to go down through the list and let everybody who is a committee chairperson talk about their particular project, program, or interest group. So we're going to start off with the AAUW College and University Partners, and Susan, you are up.
Hey, hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I co-chair this committee with Pam Ford. And let me explain a little bit about the committee. The College University Partnership Committee communicates with local colleges and universities, recruits and retains college and university partner members in the community. It increases AAUW's visibility on local campuses. We have two major projects: to Start Smart program and Nick Whistle. We provide Start Smart workshops, which were developed by the National AAUW, to students at the University of Redlands. This helps the students learn to negotiate an appropriate starting salary based on their background and value they bring to the job. We have a workshop scheduled on November 6th through Zoom. If anyone would like to observe or help, it'd be nice if you're interested to let me or Pam know, because I can send you a Zoom link. And if there's questions and you've had experience, you might help answer some of the questions. So please let Pam or me know. Now, Nick Whistle is our other main project, and it stands for AAUW's National Conference for College Women Student Leaders. The committee selects 2 applicants, one from the University of Redlands and one from Crafton Hills College. And our chapter funds their participation at the Nick Whistle Conference. So if you like working with young adults and helping them achieve equity and success, then please join the committee. Email, text, or in the chat box, let me know you're interested. And once again, it's my colleague Pam Ford is also a co-chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. We really appreciate that. Next, we're going to hear from Chris Goodfellow, who's going to talk to us about the AAUW public policy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Goodfellow, and I'm co-chair of the Public Policy Committee with Diane Landeros. AAUW is a nonpartisan organization, but that doesn't mean that we're a non-political one. We advocate on behalf of women and girls on a broad range of issues, including education, healthcare, civil rights, and equity in the workplace. We're charged with lobbying for or against legislation that affects women at the local, state, and federal levels. Here are some of the things that we want to do this year. We want the ERA to be ratified. Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the ERA last year, but the deadlines that Congress set for ratification have lapsed. Now the ERA is in a legal and political limbo, and questions remain about the amendment's validity. We will be working to follow up with school boards on their implementation of the California Healthy Youth Act. This is California's sex ed requirement. We are working to implement a business recognition program for women-friendly businesses. We've put together candidate forums and debates on ballot propositions to help inform voters. And following an investigation by the New York Times last year, our committee has decided to help advocate for legislation that would curb the exploitation of children and child sexual abuse imagery online. If you would like to work with us in advocating for women and girls in public policy issues, we'd love to have you and hope you'll sign up today. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate that. Next, we're going to hear from a new vice president that we have. Last spring, Rosa Gomez, who was our communications vice president, and was forced to resign. And so the board appointed Priya Vidula to take her place. So we want to give Priya a chance to talk to you a little bit about the communications that are available to all of our AAUW members. Priya, are you there?
I am. Hi. Hi, everyone. So yes, as Sue mentioned, I'm the new VP of Communications. Very honored to hold this position. Communications is kind of the front line of what you guys see with the amazing work that's done on the newsletter, the Facebook page, the website. And so we're going to keep that going, especially in the time of COVID, when sometimes the most major form of communication for us is our media. So we're very excited to have that. And if you want to get involved, we'd always love to have you on board. And we'll really be gearing up to make sure that the information we provide is up to date and keeps you connected with AAUW Redlands.
Thank you, Priya. We really appreciate the job that you're doing this year. I know it was different stepping in the middle of a term here, but this is going to be great. I'm sure you're going to be great help for us. All right, next we have Diane Shimoda, who's going to talk to us about the adult literacy program. Diane, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Thank you, Sue. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The Redlands Adult Literacy Program, I'm Diane Shimoda, the Adult Literacy Coordinator at Smiley Library. And I'm going to put in the chat my contact information so that you can reach me if you like that. I think I'll figure that out in a second. The Redlands Adult Literacy Program is a vital community resource providing free tutoring in English reading and writing to adults in our community. The program depends on volunteers who work one-on-one with adult learners weekly for an hour and a half for at least 6 months. We provide training and all the materials that you'll need. Improved literacy benefits the entire community as it helps learners to get jobs, improve their health literacy, further their education, communicate with doctors or teachers, and help their children or grandchildren in school. I'd like to take a moment to share some excerpts of the writing of one of the adults whose life was changed when she improved her literacy. She wrote, "In 2012, a friend recommended that I go to the adult literacy program. I am shy and I was scared. I thought it would help to work one-on-one with a teacher. My husband was very negative and didn't want me to go to school, but I wanted to learn the language of this country so I can communicate with all people. Other people I met said I was too old to learn English, but I believe it's never too late to learn. Some people encouraged me. They said I needed to speak English if I was in the hospital. When my son was sick with cancer 10 years ago, I needed to speak English to the doctors and nurses. The adult literacy program is wonderful. The tutors help us to speak, read, and write. Without this program, I wonder who would teach me. I have learned how to communicate in English. I can read and understand important papers at the bank and the doctor's office. I understand the concepts in books. I thank the literacy program for changing my life." I would also like to share that many tutors tell me that teaching adults to read has enriched their lives as well. So if you would like to learn more about the program, or if you'd like to become a volunteer to help adult learners change their lives, please contact me and I'll put the contact information in the chat box. Literacy is truly a life-changing experience for both the adult learner and the tutor. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And now we have a 2-for-1 because Catherine Gifford is sharing the screen there with Diane, and Catherine's going to talk to you about chat. Catherine,
Thank you, Sue. I'm Catherine Gifford, and I co-chair the chat program with Trudy Waldron. And the chat program, which stands for Conversation Helps Adults Transition, grew out of the adult literacy program. Well-educated women from foreign countries came to the library seeking help with their conversational English. Now we have 30 participants from 17 countries. This is how the program works. We match a woman seeking help with her conversational English with an AAUW volunteer. The team can meet at their own convenience. During the pandemic, some have conversations over the phone and others meet with social distancing. All chat members are invited to meetings that are held once or twice a month over Zoom, which gives us the opportunity to get to know each other better. Meetings are held in the morning and evening to accommodate schedules. We are always looking for volunteers, and right now we have women who are from China, India, Guatemala, and Mexico who are waiting for a conversational partner. So if you would like to talk with a new friend and learn about other countries, contact either Trudy Waldron or myself at the same number that Diane will be posting for adult literacy. Our next chat meeting is on September 22nd at 9 a.m. over Zoom, and we would love to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. That was great. Thank both of you. That was a good project there to do jointly together. The next, we're going to hear a little bit about the Nancy Yao Memorial Scholarship. Nernie Miller is generally the one who is in charge of that program, but she couldn't be here with us today, so she asked me to tell you a little bit about it. The Nancy Yao Memorial Scholarship Committee sustains the goal of matching women to scholarships, and it is designed that are on their educational re-entry path back into education. The scholarship is designed to support women who, for various reasons, have had their education interrupted and are re-entering to complete a degree or further their education through an advanced degree. Candidates can be pursuing an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a graduate degree to qualify. The scholarships typically are divided into monetary amounts based on the level of education the candidate is seeking, and more than one scholarship may be granted if the funds are available. There are several fundraisers that we have throughout the year to help fund these scholarship programs. So if we have a scholarship fundraiser for these, we will let you know. And part of the money will then go to help with a scholarship for these women who are going back into the education field. All right, next we're going to move on. I'm going to do this one too. The high school scholarship. The person in charge of the high school scholarship is Teresa Lance. And Teresa asked me to make her presentation for her also. Every year, the Redlands AAUW branch gives scholarships to our graduating seniors in the Redlands Unified School District through the Redlands Community Scholarship Foundation. And I know a little bit more about this because I just served as president of the RCSF last year and am vice president again this year. We as an organization donate the money to the RCSF, and they allow us to choose the recipients who have applied for our scholarship. Teresa Lance is the chairperson for the project, so if you're interested in joining her committee and making these selections, please contact Teresa Lance. If you're interested in helping, generally the students turn in their applications online in early February. I think the deadline is usually February the 1st. And the process of selecting the recipients generally takes place in the month of March. So if you're interested in this project, please contact Teresa Lance and she can help you get started on that particular committee. All right, next we have Catherine Brown. Catherine is going to talk to us a little bit about about the LAF fund and about our Footlighters event that is coming up. Catherine?
I don't know why I'm not on video. You can hear me, right?
Yes, and I can see you too.
Oh, good. Okay. You know, one of the greatest things about AAUW Redlands is that we not only do a lot of service projects, but we like to have fun. And along those lines, for the last over 20 years, we've had an annual Footlighters reception party and watching a play together. Well, this year, Footlighters is unable to have their plays indoors, so they have an outdoor stage. And we are going to sponsor and are sponsoring our event on October 16th. It's on the outdoor stage and it's called Dancing in the Distance. We're going to have a bunch of talented dancers directed by Terrell Corletto, who is on the faculty of Cal State San Bernardino, who's directing the show. We're going to be outdoors, socially distanced, all of the good things. We're also, as part of this event, having a piano man as our MC, and he'll be taking requests and doing dedications. So the price is $25. You can get your tickets on Eventbrite starting tomorrow. And it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope everyone will be there. This benefits some of the fun things or the more service-oriented things, which can also be fun, that you've already heard about, including the College University Partners Nick Whistle Conference, the high school scholarships, the AAUW fund is just national fund, speech track when we're able to do it. So it's for a good cause, and I hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Appreciate that. All right, next up, we are going to have another fundraising event coming up very soon. In fact, it's at the end of next week. So this is the LunaFest. And so Heather Abushanov is going to talk to us a little bit about LunaFest this year. Heather?
Thank you. My name is Heather Abushanov. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am in charge of our LunaFest. The LunaFest Corporation, the people that make the Luna bars, selects groups like ours to host LunaFest as a fundraiser for a local charity or cause. And we contribute $250 to Chicken and Egg Productions, which is Luna's organization of the charity organization of choice. And then they provide us with the films. And we split the rest of the proceeds from this event with Zonto Club of Redlands because they help us co-sponsor the activity. This year, we are holding our event in a remote format, and it's going to take place this Friday, September 18th. I put a link into the chat for a way for you to purchase tickets. The tickets are $20, and after you purchase your ticket, you'll the day of the event, you'll receive a screening pass, which will be good from 7 p.m. that evening until 7 p.m. the next day. So you'll have a 24-hour window of time to view the films. The films usually take about 90 minutes to watch. The tickets are still available, and we hope you will consider inviting your friends, even those who are out of the area, because since it's a remote event, even friends on the East Coast can purchase a ticket and be able to watch it in that 24-hour window of time. We are hopeful that in 2021, we'll be able to hold a in-person event again, like we have done in the past, but for this year, we think this should be a nice opportunity and an activity for you to be able to do. The link that you'll get will be a link to a Vimeo video. So you don't need an account on Vimeo or anything in order to watch it, but just in case that is of information or helpful information to you in terms of how you will end up viewing it. And that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate that. Next, we have Catherine Brown back again. Catherine is going to talk to us a little bit about our STEM conferences that we hold every year in January and February. Catherine?
Hi again. This year, we will be, well, actually in 2021, we're scheduled to have our 27th annual STEM conference. And that is a conference that encompasses not just Redlands, but girls who live in the Beaumont and Banning and Yucaipa school districts. We're not sure whether we're going to be able to have it as scheduled on March 10th in Redlands at the U of R. So what we're doing, and this will include the girls from Beaumont and Banning, is planning for a virtual conference. We had a meeting the other day, and our next meeting is going to be October 3rd at 9 a.m., a Zoom meeting at my at 9 from my computer. So I hope that if you're interested in the math, science, and technology and engineering conference for our girls, that you'll join us. Also, Pam Ford is the one who is heading up the conference for the Beaumont and Banning girls. We also do Tech Trek as part of our STEM initiatives. And Tech Trek is coming back again next summer as a California AAUW program. Be more information available about that in January from Marilyn Shankar. It's a program where we send, well, we were to send 12 girls this year to a week-long intensive overnight STEM conference, technology camp. This year it was done virtually. It may be done virtually next year, but either way, we work together to help our local girls have a deep dive into these subjects and careers. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Appreciate that. Next, we have Kathy Toyster, who's going to talk to us a little bit about one of our interest groups called California Cuisine. Kathy, are you there? Maybe not.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I tried to turn on the video, but I'm having problems with the video.
You are on the video now. We can see you.
Oh, okay. Well, then all right, fine. So, well, a lot of very important service-oriented projects, as Catherine just mentioned, and the fundraisers. So my topic is the California Cuisine 1 and 2, actually, unless Patty's going to say anything different about that. But it's just a cooking group, and we just love to get together, and we always prepare our own recipes. We don't bring purchased food. Significant others or a friend may join you if you would like. The only thing is we really don't know when we're going to meet again. It might be until spring, but that's okay. And the format might change a little bit, but we just wanted you to know that we do take time to just really relax and have fun with each other. So keep us posted if you want to participate, and we'll take it from there. So thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that. Next is about great decisions, and I'm going to make that presentation. Great Decisions is an interest group that meets in March and April of each year. It is produced by the American Foreign Policy Association, and it involves weekly discussions on 8 different topics chosen each year on foreign policy issues. And these topics are usually very timely and are reflected in the news headlines during the year. We have 2 groups. One group meets on Monday afternoons, and the other group meets on Wednesday evenings. If you decide to join one of these groups, you will be directed to order the booklets with the articles on the topics that will be discussed. There's also usually a video to watch each week on the chosen topic, and I think we'll be able to show those videos in our Zoom meetings if we have to do this by Zoom. Books are usually not available to be ordered until January of 2021 because they want to keep it just as up to date as possible. Information on how to order the books and the specifics of each of the meetings will be sent to you by email if you want to join this group. You can contact me for the afternoon group. I will be hosting the afternoon group, and you can contact Sue Ferguson for the evening group. She will be hosting the evening group. Our emails and telephone numbers will be included in Branches and Twigs in an article that we will be putting in the November issue of Branches and Twigs. Next, we have a group called I Am, Therefore I Think, and Tony Momberger is going to tell us a little bit about that group. Tony, are you there?
I am. Good morning. I Am, Therefore I Think is a discussion group. We create a schedule of topics in advance, and then we have people who have volunteered to facilitate each discussion. Sometimes they do a little research in advance and give us a small presentation to kick us off, but everybody gets a turn, everybody gets several turns to share their thoughts. When I was a child, I used to watch a morning cartoon called Fat Albert, and in the theme song introduction, they would say, we're about to have music and fun, and if you're not careful, you just might learn something before you're done. And that I always think of that. I literally think of that every time I go to this group because we have so much fun, but I always learn. And it's a great group of people to help. It's a great sisterhood, this group, I would say. Our first meeting this year is our annual mainstay. We start off every September with a meeting facilitated by Nelda Stuck. Everyone brings a clipping or some kind of editorial or an opinion cartoon or an article that they read over the summer or currently, it could be from that day. And we share it and people discuss it. It's a great way to kick off the year. We have other meetings this year scheduled, including a discussion on what everyone is reading these days. One about coping strategies during the pandemic. How's everybody getting through? And one about poetry. We do have a couple of meetings where we don't have a topic yet. So I Am members, please email me and let me know. I am not the actual chair of this interest group, but Ellen Schallenberger and Victoria Norberg are not comfortable doing Zoom meetings, and so I'm the interim. I'll be chairing until we're back to meeting in person. And we hope you will join. You can contact me or just show up. We'll have the schedules in the newsletters. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate you stepping in on this for us too. All right, next we do have a reading group, interest group within our AAUW organization. It's called Reading and the Rainbow, and Amy Bisick is going to talk to you a little bit about the Reading and the Rainbow. Amy?
Thank you, Sue. When I was growing up, my mom used to always say that you first learn to read and then you read to learn. And that really set me on a path of appreciating good writing and a real diverse range of writing styles and content. So I was really excited when I joined AAUW and could join, of course, Reading and the Rainbow. And as an acting chair of that, in collaboration with Catherine Brown, who is my co-chair, we meet the most fourth Thursdays of every month, both in the afternoon and in the evening. We are doing it via Zoom right now. And I manage a distribution list of all potential members who would be interested in joining. If you would like to participate in that, please contact me at amybezek at gmail.com. And of course, my email address is also within our little handbook. And this month we are reading a book called A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purcell. We always publish what we're reading each month in Branches and Twigs. And our process of selecting books is very simple. We have an annual meeting where people just suggest things that they've read in the past that they really appreciate and think would have good discussion around them. And then the group votes. And those that have the highest number of preferred votes are on the list for next year. So feel free to contact me and get on that email list, and you can see when the specific meetings are. We are holding them, of course, on Zoom, and we'll just go from there. So happy to have you aboard.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. All right. We do have several interest groups and projects that are going to be inactive at this point because of the COVID-19. So I thought I would just mention them. They are not going to be meeting at least in the fall season, but if the restrictions are lifted in 2021, we can restart some of these interest groups. The interest groups that are not going to be meeting this fall are Bunko, Bridge, and we usually have more than one Bridge group that meets as well. And as Kathy Toyster said, California Cuisine will not be meeting yet. The International Affairs Group is not going to be meeting. They usually hold lunches and have a speaker that is from a different country that talks about their country, and they're not going to be meeting. And Hiking the Hills is postponing their their meetings also. And hopefully then in 2021, we will be able to start some of those groups back up again. We will also not be hosting one of the homes on the YMCA tour in December. They have decided to do this project online and not in person, so they don't require us to serve as a host for one of the homes. So basically, those are our inactive projects and interest groups. But for the most part, we're trying to stay actively involved, even despite the fact that we cannot meet in person.